Well, thanks for joining me today, Sean. Today
Yeah.
I've got Sean Falconer here from Empire Drone, and they're our certified partner in New York. And Empire Drone offers a variety of services, from actual drone flying services to hardware sales to training, covering quite a bit. And here today we're going to discuss specifically the drone services portion of the business, and specifically for large mapping projects, some of the advantages of doing that and some of the challenges that come up. So Sean, as we start here, could you give a little overview about yourself and how you first got involved with drones?
Yeah, so I actually first got involved with drones back in 2014. My education is in architecture, actually.
Oh,
So
wow.
I went to school for architecture, undergrad and graduate school. And in 2014, I started my first architecture job, but at the same time, I bought my own drone. And I started doing service jobs on the side with a drone. And it got to the point where it was time to make a career change. So
Mhm.
yeah, a few years ago, decided to go headlong directly into a drone career, and that's what led to the creation of Empire Drone. Myself and my partner John, who's one of the co-founders as well. So yeah, as Emily said, it's sales, training, and then commercial drone services as well.
Great. And when it comes to mapping with the multispectral sensors specifically, what are some of the applications that commonly come up in your region?
Yeah, so especially on the sales side of things, we're located in upstate New York, so there's a ton of farmland. People think New York and they think New York City. Well, upstate New York, it's all farmland. It's all corn
Yeah.
and soybeans and orchards. So we get a lot of farmers interested in using multispectral cameras to analyze their crops. Especially a lot of corn. I don't know why. It's I guess it's really popular to use multispectral cameras for corn in upstate New York. And
Gotcha.
then, not only the agricultural side, but also the research side. We've worked with a number of colleges and universities because this is also a hotbed for education up here, who are using multispectral sensors in their research, and then, like a lot of environmental research, like how to detect algae out and, on the lakes and the Finger Lakes and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's a lot of demand in this area, in this region.
Nice. So you already kind of spoke to kind of who is utilizing that kind of data from, you're saying, from agricultural space to research and environmental monitoring type applications as well, kind of covering the gambit of vegetation management in general. Um, for those different kind of customer types, what are you finding as far as the outputs that they're looking for if they do contract out services? Um, are they wanting like a PDF report with certain vegetation indices, or are they just taking that geotiff and doing the analysis themselves?
Typically, it's been well, it's twofold. They either do the analysis themselves, and they want that data TIFF, or they're working with, say, like an agronomist who is also looking for, the raw data TIFF. So typically, we don't handle any in-house analysis. It's mostly we're just providing that raw data, or the pretty image that comes out of the out of the processing software.
Nice. Yeah, and then they have the full capability to do whatever they need to do on the analytics side.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, great. This past summer, you had a pretty big job that came through mapping with Red Edge MX, specifically 15,000 acres. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. 15,000 acres.
Which is, yeah, quite a large area. I'm sure that was quite the feat. Could you tell us a little bit about that project and how that all came about?
Yeah. So again, it's back to corn, especially specifically cow corn. As I said earlier, there's a ton of that up here. There's a lot of dairy farms. So there was a large dairy operator in upstate New York who wanted to analyze the majority of their fields. Um, looking specifically, they were looking for NDVI maps, to understand where they needed to apply chemical to their field, trying to identify parts of the field that are in stress. So it's huge. It's huge for them because typically they have to do that with a satellite or an airplane, which is incredibly costly. And, it's not, upstate New York's kind of cloudy. So it's tough to get a break in the
So
clouds with, say, like a satellite or something like that.
yeah,
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 so they came
costing
to
in the
us to
airplane.
try it out with drones.
Mhm.
And I'd say it was pretty successful.
Great. Well, as you were kind of, I'm sure that was broken up into based on the different fields, which days you're flying, which areas type thing. Um, as the logistics of covering that area kind of played out, what were some of the challenges that came up and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, so right off the bat, one of the biggest challenges was um, batteries, batteries for the drone, um, and maintaining um, a good program for keeping those batteries charged. Um, we had to quickly develop a system of we used a DJI M210 um,
Okay.
drone with the Red Edge MX attached to it, which is it's a quadcopter. So
Yeah.
use a TB55 battery. So we had to bring 6 or 8 of those batteries into the field. I don't remember exactly. And we brought a generator with us as well. So anytime we started flying and the battery was depleted, we threw it on the rapid charger we have with a generator out in the field to get the batteries charging for the next few flights. So batteries were the bane of our existence for this project.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the future, we're going to investigate fixed wing aircraft because they can cover more acreage per hour, but batteries.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, we come across the same problem sometimes when we're covering, some large areas for test flights that we do ourselves. We've only had the generator one time, and that was very handy, definitely, to be able to be charging when you're flying.
Yeah, let me tell you, having a gas generator in the back of a pickup truck with lithium-ion batteries everywhere is, is a little terrifying.
Yeah, a
With
little
a
nerve-wracking.
drone zipping around, I was like,
Yeah,
it's gonna blow up.
yeah, yeah. And so for one of those days, if you've got like the 6 battery packs, how much area were you able to cover in a,
Yeah.
afternoon's worth of flights?
I think in the end, what were we doing? I think we were averaging about 400 acres a day, 500 acres a day. And that was being really diligent with our time
Mhm.
and our battery charging program. It also depended greatly on the size of the field that we were flying. Some of the fields we flew were, I think the smallest one was like 8 acres, and it was a 10-minute drive from a cluster of, a few 100-acre fields. So again, that was another big challenge. It was planning our travel effectively. Understanding the fact that okay, there's a cluster. I don't know if this probably doesn't apply out Midwest where the fields are massive, but in upstate New York, we would go to a cluster of fields that say we're 100 acres or more, and we got to the point where we're actually hitting multiple fields in the same flight and then breaking it up in post processing. So just becoming efficient with the flights as well. Um, that was a big challenge, and we learned a lot from that. But there's nothing you can do when you when you have to go do the 8 acre field, 10, 20 minutes away. So just about
Yeah.
efficient timing and stuff.
Yeah, that is interesting. I have heard a couple other people doing that if they're, regionally flying, especially during the growing season where they might have multiple, customers, or in the case like you're saying, a large producer that has multiple fields throughout the region.
Yeah.
Um, to be
Yep.
able to figure out, even if you're flying with a fixed wing aircraft, can you kind of dip below a certain altitude in between flights so that you'll have a gap in the data and be
Yeah.
able to have, like you said, in post processing, handle that
Yeah.
separately.
I think one of the biggest flights we did was maybe just over 400 acres, and that incorporated 3 or 4. No, I think actually no, I think it was like 8 fields total. So we flew that whole grid, and then in post processing using the KMLs, we were able to break it up into the actual fields for the grower, so they could know okay, this field needs that, this field needs this. But becoming efficient with the flights is key.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So what was the customer's impression by kind of season's end once they were able to get all these NDVI maps for their different fields? And is it something that they're going to continue next year potentially?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They saw the value in it, especially with how nimble a drone can be. Just for an example, it got to the point where it was kind of like they were planning out which fields they needed to be hit the day before, because then the next day the sprayer would be in that region. So we were essentially one day, we were operating one day advanced from the sprayer coming in and spraying the field, um, which it was like you just you
Yeah,
can't beat that efficiency.
definitely.
Like it's kind of like a snapshot in time. Okay, we
Right.
know right now this is what the field needs. Okay, the sprayer is coming 24 hours later. So that they loved it. So
That's
yeah,
great. So like almost kind of,
we hope they'll call back.
yeah, yeah. It sounds like almost like near real time data basically right before you're making that management decision around fertilizers to see how does it look with this aerial map, and are we going to do a
Right,
blanket application or are we going to target certain areas?
right. It's like on demand essentially.
Hmm. Awesome. So in addition to the drone services, you also offer, sales consultation. You offer our sensors and different drone options, other payloads as well. Of course,
Mhm.
demonstrations and trainings and whatnot. How do you think the services portion of the business informs the sales and support and training portion? And I'm sure those are
Yeah.
complementary.
Oh yeah, they are. I mean, being forced to, actually go out there and use the products you also sell, is huge. You quickly become an expert, in those products. Um, so, that's how we're able to bill ourselves as specialists, because we use we use everything here for services, and then we also sell it. So when people come to us and say, hey, I'm looking to start a drone program. I'm looking to, start a drone program for my farm. We can approach it from two different ways. We can either provide the service for them, or we can help set up their drone program through sales and consultation, and they can do it themselves. So yeah, they definitely play off of each other.
Yeah. Definitely, and I'm sure too, it's nice, if somebody wants to do the services for the first couple of years, kind of start with small acreage and maybe scale up and then eventually get their own equipment. It's nice to have both options to offer them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. And so where do you think is looking into the future, where do you think there's kind of room for growth for using drones and remote sensing in agriculture, and what kind of developments are you excited to see next?
Yeah, I think we are like literally just at the beginning of, this process. The thing that I'm most excited to see is that more on-demand application. Um, we also sell, spraying drones, crop dusting drones. So the golden goose in my mind is you go out with a multispectral sensor, like a MicaSense sensor. You go and map a field. In the field, you then have that data in the field. You could send that to an agronomist, or if you're knowledgeable enough, analyze that data directly in the field, and then send a spraying drone to go and autonomously target just areas of the field in need. Um, that's a huge shift in how it's traditionally done, um, and I see that as just that's going to be a huge breakthrough once that process is figured out and really put into
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I could see that as being something that would apply both for agriculture and for kind of land management stuff as well, especially if you're looking at, invasive weeds. Maybe it's an
Oh
area that's
yeah,
kind of marshy or muddy and you can't get in there with ATV or other kind of equipment to do the spraying. A spray drum would be perfect for that kind of
yeah,
application.
absolutely, absolutely.
Great. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your insight about this and getting to know a little bit about you and Empire Drone. So thanks for joining me today. And we'll include links to your website and some more information as well if people want to investigate further.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. It's good talking to you.
You as well.